While the core ideologies remain the same, the policies and principles of both the Republican and Democrat parties have undergone many changes over the years. In an article entitled "The Switcheroos of the Two Parties," our next guest writes, as Republicans diminish the role of race, the Democrats grew even more obsessed about it, fixating over skin color in direct proportion to their own affluence, status, and privilege. Well, joining us now is the author of that piece, Victor Davis Hanson, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institute. Victor, it's always good to see you. Welcome back to the show. As I said, that was just one example of many that you laid out in that piece, explaining how Republicans and Democrats have seemingly traded places over the years. What are some other examples of the so-called switcheroo?
You know, the Democratic Party used to pride itself in what they call lunch bucket issues, or the blue-collar working classes, unionization, all of that. And every data survey you can find shows that they've lost most of the support of the middle class. They don't like the middle class. Culturally, they don't respect its religiosity or its worry about local school board control of instructional materials, whether it's transgenderism or radical gay stuff. But most importantly, I think, is if you look at the zip codes and what the predominant political persuasion is within those zip codes, or you look at congressional districts, blue versus red, then collate income, you find that really the Democratic Party is the party of the upper middle and upper professional classes, and then the very wealthy. If you go on the Fortune 400 and you look at the top 30 billionaires, multi-billionaires, they're mostly left-wing. That's new, but it also, I think, explains why in this particular midterm cycle they're talking about climate change or January 6th or abortion on demand, but they're not talking about crime or energy or the price of gasoline or an open border, because these are issues that they feel that their leaders and their spokespeople and their policymakers don't have any experience with, they're insulated from.
You know, it's interesting to me, we've been talking about this, but you think about some of the key coalitions that have been part of the Democratic Party, young people, voters of color, right, Hispanics and blacks. You have started to see a shift. It may not be seismic, but each little bit matters. Over the last couple cycles, with the Republican Party picking up more and more of each of those coalitions, how important is that, and why, do you think?
It's very important because I think what you're talking about, Sean, is they have substituted class for race, and that's a much better barometer of where people are at. The problem in the United States is not that Oprah or Meghan Markle or LeBron James is oppressed or victimized. The problem is the middle class of all different races and ethnic backgrounds has not been doing very well. They hadn't had really an increase in income until Trump came in for 12 years. They've lost that again due to inflation. So when you stress class, that's an ecumenical idea. And that suggests that it's open to anybody, not predicated on something that can't be changed, or your skin color. But at the same time they were doing that, the Democratic Party and this wokeness and political correctness earlier really demonized the white working class. And so they have got historic low levels of support. And that means that they became heavier and heavier reliant on almost a monolithic Latino and black vote. So in a normal world, if it was 50-50, they would be pretty well off. But they need a 70% Latino vote, or they need a 85% African-American vote, because they've deliberately insulted and alienated the white working class. Think of the terms they've used, whether it was Barack Obama, Joe Biden, or Hillary Clinton: deplorable, clingers, chumps, dregs, irredeemables. And people remember all of that. And so they have to have just an astounding percentage, which it's not I don't think it's going to be sustainable in the sense of Latinos, and especially African American males are starting to get up to 18 to 22% willingness to vote Republican. If that happens and is actualized, I think they're in real trouble in these midterm.
You know, as we think about this election, Victor, it seems like a flexion point, because Democrats would say this is a threat to democracy if Republicans win. And Republicans, as we're talking about, would say, well, if Democrats get the majority, we will see this massive progressive behavior from them and their policies taking the country further and further left. But at the end of the day, you hear many voters who would say, I think both sides have issues. So how do you square this when both sides are just pointing fingers and not talking much about policy, I believe, as we used to hear?
Well, I looked at which side is talking about the issues that are rated of most concern by the electorate and defending those issues or attacking them. So here we have a Democratic executive, a Democratic legislature, Congress, House, and Senate. So they have had 2 years. They are not saying this is wonderful, the border is open, we got 3 million new Americans. They're not saying, wow, we got Stephen Chu's ideal, the former Obama energy secretary. We've got it up to $6 a gallon. We want to get up to $7. Boy, that was great that we canceled Keystone. They're either ignoring those issues or they're trying to deflect from them by obsessing on abortion or January 6th or the Mar-a-Lago raid or this obsession with Donald Trump. So they're not defending their own platform, and you think they would. And if they don't want to defend it, then you would think, well, it's because it's unpopular and therefore we're going to change it. So they don't either come out and say, we're going to drill in Anwar, we're going to finish Keystone, we're going to reopen federal leasing offshore because we need to get the price down for the middle class, or we're going to build 100 miles of walls to alleviate the pressure on communities in the Rio Grande Valley. So they'll neither defend what they do, nor will they change, where the Republicans are just saying, look at the issues. This is what's wrong. This is what we would do. Right. And they don't want to debate. Yeah. So you see Fetterman, or you see in Arizona, the Senate and the governor, they don't want to debate.
Yeah, that's it. They don't want to debate. They don't want to have this open dialogue that you're pointing out. Victor Davis Hanson, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks for your insight tonight.
Thank you.